something here to update what displays in the form, where is the data going to have to live for that? At least main, right? It's going to have to be in main or app. These two components don't know anything about each other, and they shouldn't know anything about each other. If we want to keep track of what the currently selected node is, that's something we should create in the state at a higher level in app or main. And clicking it inside the notes list could simply call a method that sets what that current node is, and then our state in note form could be tied to that. Or maybe we don't need state at all. Maybe we just use a prop that's passed down from main or app. Does that make sense? If we have two sort of sibling components, they need to share data. They don't share data directly with each other. They need to update data somewhere else at a higher level. And as long as both of them are getting their data from there, then one can impact the other. So are props in general starting to make a little more sense? Passing methods as props. So did anyone run across context when they were trying to do any of this stuff? Somebody in the morning asked about it, so I'll mention it real quick. Context is something, well, let me rephrase that. So you may be thinking there's got to be a better way than passing props down multiple levels to child components, like all the way from app through main, through note list to note. That probably seems a little ridiculous. And the way that's built into React to handle that is called context. But if you look up context in the React docs, it's basically one big warning telling you not to use it. So the vast majority of applications do not need to use context. More specifically, if you want your application to be stable, don't use context. Well, that pretty much covers it. Furthermore, if you aren't familiar with state management libraries like Redux or MobX, don't use context. So you guys real familiar with those? Then probably don't use it. In other words, it's saying only use it if you really want to. If you know what the alternatives are and you're just determined to use it. But basically, they recommend not to use it. It's not an entirely stable API. So, yeah, the real answer is when things get to be a little complicated like that, the truth is most people use Redux or some other totally different pattern for data management. And unfortunately, this class just isn't long enough to get into that. But we will be, on the last couple of days, directing you to some more information about that if you want to look it up. That's probably where I would go next with your self-study on React if you want to keep learning more. The meetup, yep. Next Monday, there's a React meetup. I think we're just looking at it. We'll double check. Not that one. Yeah, okay, the 26th. Can you paste that link in Slack? Thanks. And among other things, there is a talk on Redux that it sounds like maybe reasonably beginner friendly. So you might want to go to that. If you're still around, that's in Fisher's. So before we start worrying about clicking these things and making it do stuff, let's try persisting our data somehow. We've used local storage in the past. That was great as long as you were using the same browser. But now we'd like to store data in the cloud. So like I promised last week, we're going to build an entire backend in Node this week. No, what did I say we were going to do? Firebase. So let's learn about our friend Firebase.